some access to more homes.
Yeah, I was going to say, that gives him a chance to troll. I mean, shit, he might as well have been a pizza delivery guy at this point. That would have been a good trolling job. Not to give people ideas, but I'm just saying. Okay, so January 19th, 1991, the body of Dolores Davis, 62. And you want to talk about a guy that's like getting every single age range? That is a Richard Ramirez type character if I've ever heard one. Body of Dolores Davis, 62, was found under a bridge a few blocks from her home. And then, so we get another dead period for him, another 5-year period where he's completely silent, and he starts doing all these things in Sedgwick County. 1996, he's Board of Zoning Appeals, Animal Control Advisory Board. 2 years later, and this is, again, a long dead period, the longest dead period yet, once again. Board of Zoning Appeals, Animal Control Advisory Board, and he possibly tranquilized his neighbor Barbara Walters' dog August 6, 1998. Nobody's sure of that, though. Also in the year of 1998, which would give us about a 7-year gap, I guess, Misty King reports Rader's helping her with a difficult time while her husband was hospitalized, and even checked on her after the marriage ended until she began dating. Rader then began harassing King, who was given citations by Rader from 1991 to 2001. So, I mean, everybody that says his life is normal, yeah, it was, but there's little things thrown in here or there that kind of give you an idea of what type of asshole he was, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
He actually euthanized King's dog in 2001, so he was a dick. I mean, let's be honest. But, you know, outside of animals, no murders for a good, that we know of, for a good 13 years now, because now, March 19th, 2004, this is when he pops up again, and this is my earliest memory of BTK, because I didn't know shit about BTK as a kid. I feel like it wasn't publicized nationally like a lot of these other cases, but March 19th, 2004, at the age of 59, BTK sent a letter to the Wichita Eagle claiming responsibility for the September 16, 1986 murder of Vicki Wegerle. And in the letter, he actually included a photocopy of her driver's license and 3 photos of the body. So basically, he's not really killing at this point. He's more like fucking with the police again, isn't he? I mean, why the hell, like, he just pop up and start fucking with them? I guess he was bored.
Likes the notoriety, right? I mean,
well, let's think about something. If you look at the time period, his kids are getting older, so maybe he has time to fuck with the police now.
Well, even when these kids were kind of young, he was still
right.
in it, right? I mean,
he did do it the same month one of them was born, so you're right.
Right. He was obviously in his mind, he was obviously compelled to do it. I mean, one of the quotes he had there was around that, basically he was relieved after he was killed. He was relieved. It felt good. It felt, right for him.
Which is, I think, pretty common among these guys. There's something about that. I mean, hell, they touch on things like that in Dexter, where he just has this compulsion that he has to fulfill, you know?
Yep.
So, May 5th, 2004, another letter from BTK arrives at a local Wichita television station. A month later, June 17th, 2004, another letter was found in the drop box of the local library. July 17th, 2004, you get a package from BTK found in the Wichita library. And then October 22nd, 2004, a letter is discovered at a Wichita shopping center from BTK on the 30th anniversary of his first communications. He has a flair for the dramatic. I'll give him that. And then December 14th, 2004, a man found a plastic bag in Murdoch Park that had Nancy Fox's license along with a letter. It also contained a Barbie doll with gag and binds on it, which is fucked up. Yeah, just weird shit. I mean, like, at this point, he's just getting creative with his, like, he's not even killing anybody, but he's still messing with the police. He's just messing with people. He just likes terrorizing at this point, is what I would call it.
Yeah, he does. It's this sense of power. Even though he's not actively killing, he can still elicit this reaction from people. It's probably very sexually gratifying to him as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember one picture where he reproduced, or where he dressed up as one of his victims, dressed up in drag, wasn't it? like he had a wig and he had makeup and he bound himself. So it was obviously something that he got off on. It was sexual in nature. You ever see that picture?
Yeah, I think I have. It goes along with him, to be honest with you. So, all right, so he sends that Barbie doll in the gag and the binds on, and then a couple months later, February 2005, he served as president of Christ Lutheran Church Congregational Council, and he worked as a Cub Scout leader.
Mm-hmm.
That shit is just unnerving to think about, creepy. That same month in February 2005, this jackass, he sends a manila envelope with a computer disk and other items to KSAS TV station there in Kansas. And that is what ultimately does him in, because 9 days later he's arrested, bond set at $10 million, and he pled not guilty, which obviously we know how that turned out. Talk about this for a second. At John Borowski's film, the H.H. Holmes, America's First Serial Killer, actually helped lead to his capture, because they had done a probe into who all in the area had bought his DVD or his movie, H.H. Holmes. And of course, Rader was one of the names that popped up in Wichita, Kansas there. So props to you, Borowski. You helped bring this fellow to justice. Blake and Johnny, talk about this shit. Obviously we got the confessions and everything else. He rolled over pretty quick on this whole thing after all the evidence was presented. But do you guys remember this moment in 2005?
Whenever, it was way out of the blue. It was pretty much out of the blue. Because I've heard of BTK before, just from a historical perspective, and then all of a sudden it came back to the news that they arrested him, and it was just kind of crazy, because it was something recently happened with the Golden State Killer, right? That just came out of blue, and that was because of DNA. And I thought that they also used DNA to help tie Dennis Rader to murders with the seminal fluid.
They used a pap smear from his daughter to actually tie it in. So, that DNA, it'll come back and get you. You jack off at a crime scene, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get busted. I'm just saying, I don't know. For a guy that, everybody talks about as being so organized and all this, he fucked up a lot. And that's really ultimately what led to his downfall, because he actually asked somebody at the police or he asked somebody somewhere if computer disks can be traced, and they told him no, and then they did. So, dumbass. He took somebody's word for it, and then he got busted. So he apparently, and again, Catherine Ramsland, I'm going to keep bringing her up, and everybody who listens to this episode, I hope you go back and listen to that one. She mentioned that because I was curious how he felt about being captured. He never thought he was going to be captured, much like a lot of these guys, and he apparently replays it in his mind over and over again, how he fucked up with the computer disk. And he got sloppy, let's be honest. He was so obsessed with writing to people and fucking with them that, he ultimately got himself captured.
Right. He was a person that was looking for more and more notoriety for work that he did. So his ego got him more so than anything else. But even still, even back in the 90s, if you're leaving trails behind, DNA had been around since the 80s, so it wasn't new. He should have known something as simple as hey, Mom, I'm not going to leave DNA back. But he did. So he was certainly not bothered by his fetish. But he wasn't really, he was smart in it, or he was meticulous in one area and completely sloppy in the other. Did I lose you?
I'm still here. I don't know what happened to them.
I said, I'm here. I don't know for Travis when he died.
I muted, didn't realize it.
Oh, okay. There you are. What the hell?
I'm sitting here talking to you guys. I'm sitting here I'm like, what are they talking about? What the fuck? Anyway, what I was going to say is that he had 10 suspected victims and possibly more. Catherine says that she thinks there's one more that he just won't talk about for whatever reason. And this is something that Kevin M. Sullivan talked about with Bundy. There were very private things to him. Like, he would never talk about the young. He never liked to talk about the young kids that he killed. So, curious what there might be that BTK is not talking about. And, you know, obviously he's an organized lust killer. He seemed kind of tall in court, but he's only 5'11". So, I mean, not that that's super short or anything. I mean, shorter than me, but it just seems like I don't know. He seemed tall in court, but I don't know. It was really weird how he talked about these murders matter-of-factly. I don't know how many times you guys have watched that. I've done it way too many times over the last month, but it's fucking strange.
He is kind of disassociated with his particular actions. I mean, but that's not uncommon, right? I mean, whenever you hear interviews with any serial killer, or with most serial killers, that they're pretty much disassociated from their actions, and it's rather matter of fact. I mean, it wasn't until like David Berkowitz until later on that he was trying to get out of it, and he had more of an emotional reaction to it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And the thing about him is, look, here's what we all do, and this is something that I think males do better than females. We compartmentalize. We're able to work with people that we don't like and just deal with it, whereas I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this, but most women that I know have a hard time working with people they don't like. And this is just a blanket rule across the board. It doesn't cover all women or all men, but that's what I've noticed. Anyway, for him, he called it cubing, and this is something, again, Catherine talked about last week. Cubing is a weird fucking term, but it makes sense to where he's able to, like, live his life over here and then have a serial killer life over here. And I just find that really interesting, but also really odd.
Extremely odd. I mean, that's what makes him probably more prototypical in the eyes of people that follow serial killers, because he was a dude that really was common in society. He did a lot of, you know, like he wasn't trolling homosexuals like John Wayne Gacy. But John Wayne Gacy, for all intents and purposes, was a pretty upstanding individual. He worked, you know, at his day job, and he did other things. Like everybody, he's a person. That's why Dennis Rader looked like a normal dude. He just looked like somebody you would see in the grocery store or whatever, and that's what makes him perfectly scary as a serial killer. He's only 5'11". He works in his church, and he does Cub Scout stuff, and everybody can talk about how nice of a quiet person he is. But that really ain't who he is.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we've talked about this throughout, but, his method of killing, or his preferred method of killing, was that he would cut the phone lines, break into the home, wait for the victim, bind victim or victims, torture them before strangling them. And when I say torture, this isn't like he's like I don't know, waterboarding them or cutting them or anything like that. What he's doing is he likes to deprive them of air, and when they're almost dead or almost passed out, he'll let go, let them breathe for a little bit, and then he'll do it again. And that is a really fucked up thing, because I don't know about you, but having air deprived from you in that manner would fucking suck.
Yep. He was definitely sadistic. He was one of the most sadistic serial killers that you can think about. He was very meticulous, and I don't know. I don't know what adjective there is really to describe him.
Weird. That's what I don't know. You're right, though. Meticulous is a good adjective to describe him. Obviously we talked about this. He used a gun and knife in some cases. The gun was more of a thing to get control, not so much to kill with. Not that he didn't use it before, but in some cases he would actually move the victim's vehicle a few blocks away, which not sure why he would do that necessarily, but I get it. And then most of the time he would drive to the crime because he lived about 10 to 12 miles from the crime scenes. And then usually, I think every time really, the killing occurred in the home of the victim, although I don't know that 100% of the time. But as far as we know, there's that.